welcome on into the Utah Blockcast. I'm Steve Bartle, Utah Insider for KSL Sports. Fresh off of watching Utah destroy the UCLA Bruins in the Rose Bowl, 43-10. The whole gang is back. The whole gang is back. Cameron Beck, Tyson Mall, Josh Bennett. How are we doing, fellas? How are we doing after watching what we watched this past weekend? Utah versus UCLA. How are we feeling?
Like the last 2 years didn't even happen. We needed, like we said this before, we needed this. We needed this. Like that, the last 2 years have been absolutely brutal. And just to have that game last night, just in my opinion, I mean, I easily forget stuff, but you know, it just makes it all better.
It felt like the first cold, like getting into a cold pool after having a sunburn, like such a really bad sunburn.
That's a good one.
Like that is a good one. Ooh, I could.
But no, I mean, amazing, right? Like it was fun. Like not only doing the thing, the big thing, seeing an offense that's a lot of fun, but having fun and just not having to stress about the game, not having to dread or dread getting the ball or any certain groups or positions or people. Just getting to sit back and have fun and enjoy such a completely different experience than we have had for a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, that felt like the longest off season of my life. I'm sure you guys kind of feel the same, just wanting to get that stink out of our whatever, right? A very important season for Utah. You look at everything that's coming down the pipeline with realignment this, P2 that, whatever. Like, you know, we need to step up and compete. And there couldn't have been a better start to the 2025 football season. I think everybody did a collective exhale. And the punch mark on that 20 play, call it a 9 minute and change or so drive, that was cool to see. That felt like a we are back moment for sure.
Yeah, it was interesting, you know, after the game, interacting with fans. Josh hosted a space, and then on my flight home this morning, interacting with fans on the flight, you can feel like the rejuvenated vibes for everybody, right? Like that was the type of that got the whole band, program, fan base, everybody around Utah football. It got them back on the bandwagon. And it was interesting last night in the Twitter space. You know, there's excitement to watch Utah versus Cal Poly. And that to me is just like, that's where we're at with this team now. Like, you know, after last year and just kind of the struggle and the grind that it was, you know, now after watching Utah put up 43 points and control the game the way that they did, we're now chomping at the bit to watch this team beat up on the Cal Poly Mustangs. Like that's where we're at. Like it's just a complete flip, and you know, there's a lot of excitement, and it's just good to feel that again. It's good to enjoy that, to not have to worry, right? To not deal with those frustrations, and just kind of, you know that you've got a squad that is built to win and to dominate in many ways. So I think that was I don't want to say the perfect win, but man, it's as close to perfect, if you don't call it that, as you could have asked for Utah in terms of setting the tone for 2025 and what this could potentially be. So excited, you know, and we're going to dive into a number of different topics. Excited for tonight's episode because we have the whole gang back. Have been looking forward to this episode for quite some time. So to get Cam, to get Tyson and Bennett on the show all together, man, I'm grateful. I'm excited. Looking forward to doing more of these over the course of the season. It was interesting. Cam texted me. He won't confirm this. He probably won't deny this, but you know, he said, I'll only come back if Utah scores a touchdown in the first quarter. And then he said, only if they score 3 touchdowns in the first half. And then they said, They have to they have to win by 32 points. What does Utah do to Kerry Rogers? Punches into the end zone to give Utah a 33-point spread, and here we go. Cam is back, and that didn't actually happen. That
is
back.
That's better than what I actually texted you before this game. So let's go with that story. Yeah, it's great to be back. It's so good to be. I mean, and all the feelings that we already talked about, right? Like, what a long off season of, you know, not knowing what this football program was going to be after last season, and feeling so much vindication over so much, or over so many feelings for so long about, you know, what could be possible. And suddenly now, you know, I'm sure we'll get more into this, but like, what does this mean? What does this mean? What could this have meant? All sorts of things. So couldn't ask for a better start.
So before we get into the meat of the show and the conversation and topics and all that, just a few housekeeping notes to run through. Prior to the game, I put out a little giveaway, a Lodge hat giveaway, and asked everybody to give score predictions for the game. And whoever got the correct score prediction would win a new Lodge 33 hat, which are gorgeous hats. Ran into actually the Mace Windu from Twitter, ran into him rocking that Devon Dampier hat. It's a beautiful hat. And so these are great hats. So nobody guessed the correct score for this one, so we're going to go with the closest score. And I have photo evidence of Whit Owns Riley, the Twitter account, predicting a 45-13 victory for Utah, giving him the edge in the score prediction. He was the closest. So T. Everett, you've got yourself a new Lodge chat. I'll hit you up, slide in the DMs, and we'll make that happen. So congrats to you. But moving forward, it has to be the actual correct score. So that's just to put that out. Moving forward, we're gonna do the closest one for this one. T. Everett called it 45-13. He was the closest, but moving forward, we're going with the correct score because these hats are top quality and top quality cost. So
what's a perfect encapsulation of how this game was, by the way, that the closest score even guessed was not really all that close to the outcome in terms of Utah's performance. So like, yeah, that's how I'm feeling today after that win.
That was one of the first things I said to Bartle when he hopped into space. I was like, hey, nobody nailed that score dead on just because nobody was that bullish. So yeah, Whit does own Riley. Good job. Whit owns Riley. T. Everett. Love that.
And he even admitted that he threw it out there knowing he's full on optimism, like just threw it out there just to see what stuck, and got himself a hat. Tyson, do you have a Lodge hat?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I no, yeah. So I'm gonna throw my proverbial hat into the literal hat ring.
Oh, there you go.
For this here.
There you go. Love it. So we'll keep that going with Lodge 33. Working on some things to make that more of an official sponsorship with Utah. But before we move forward, I also am going to start doing Blockhead sticker helmet awards for the offensive lineman of the week. And I think given the performance we saw yesterday with that offensive line, it would be appropriate to give it to all of them. But I think, just a lot of fun watching Spencer Fano dominating on Saturday night. So he is the first Blockhead helmet sticker winner of the 2025 season. I'm working on some things with this too, hoping to actually get an actual helmet and actual stickers to like build this out. It'll be a lot of fun. But he was a lot of fun.
I just want to, that reminds me of something. In the Discord over the weekend, there was some discussion about helmet stickers. What do the guys here think about helmet stickers?
I absolutely
are we pro or anti-helmet sticker?
I'm very pro helmet sticker.
I'm
I'm
pro
pretty
helmet
pro.
sticker. I'm pro helmet sticker purely because my good buddy James Smoking Ute, he hates them. So I love them because of that.
That's a great reason. You're on the you're on the right side of that argument there.
Well, and my position has been made known in that particular chat. So the 10 of you who know what I'm talking about, there you have it.
Love it. So Spencer Fano, and there's clips already coming out of Spencer and his performance. Excited to cut up some more clips from Fano and what he was able to do, but really, he set the tone, and that group set the tone throughout the game, to start the game, and carried it throughout all 4 quarters. And Spencer was the guy leading the way for that unit, and lived up to the hype in so many different ways. So shout out to Spencer. And the offensive line just, again, did a tremendous job. So let's dive into it. On this episode, we're going to talk a number of different topics. We're going to talk, obviously, about the offense, Devon Dampier, the offensive performance, what that means for Utah moving forward, what it's done for all of us and that follow the program. We're going to go through a fun little conversation. Was Utah good or was UCLA bad? That'll be a fun one. And then we're going to dive into, I think, the hottest topic coming out of that game last night is the Smith Snowden Lander Barton two-way usage. We'll talk through all of that and then take a look at the Big 12. So let's dive into it, fellas. Utah put up 43 points, scored on 7 to 9 possessions. Devon Dampier was fantastic, 21 to 25, 206 yards through there, 2 touchdowns. Led the team in rushing with 87 carries and another score. Josh, I'll throw this one to you. Do you feel like he met or surpassed expectations? And what does this offensive performance do for Utah in terms of their outlook moving forward, as we get into conference play here in a couple weeks? What does it do for their outlook there?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that he for sure surpassed expectations. I know coming into it, we set that over under on all-purpose yards at that 330 mark. He ended up with 293, topped that off with 3 touchdowns. We both thought that he'd hit the under just because he might not be asked to do as much as he was at New Mexico. But I mean, he got whatever he wanted all night. He looked like he was totally in control. He was quietly confident. He wasn't like annoying or over the top with it. He just looked like a man that was on a mission and knew where to go and how to move. So yes, I'd say this does make life feel more manageable in the Big 12. There are some teams that can score some points. That 30 point per game mark has always been a mark for Utah. That's just important. If we could get there, we're going to win a lot of football games. If you look at the 2024 football season, we would have lost 1 game if we scored 30 points in every single game. We would have lost to Colorado. And that game ran away at the end. You don't know what the defense is like if they're not gassed and spending all that time on the field too. So yeah, sky's the limit. If we're able to score 30 points per game, if 43 points per game is what we score, then don't get me too ahead of myself.
Yeah, was really impressed with Dampier and just his demeanor. Obviously his athleticism really shined, but he never looked rattled, never looked out of sorts. Obviously had plenty of time in the pocket. And what was interesting, I asked him how big of an adjustment that has been for him, coming to Utah with an offensive line that is actually providing him time in a safe, secure pocket compared to what he was experiencing last year at New Mexico. And, he said it's helped his game a lot, but it's also been an adjustment. And I think we saw some missed opportunities for him to move the ball down the field. So, that's kind of, an encouraging thing more than anything else, to perform the way that he did, be as efficient as he was, but still have things out there that he could have done to even improve upon those numbers, I think is really, really exciting. Tyson, the offensive line led the way for Utah in so many different ways, nearly 300 yards. The interior of the line, I thought, was kind of a key for this one in terms of a key matchup against that UCLA, defensive tackle group. what did seeing that offensive line unit perform the way that they did, live up to the hype, live up to the expectations, be as advertised? What did that do for Utah and sort of this matchup, but also projecting forward as well?
I will die on the hill that the number one position group behind quarterback is offensive line. If you have an elite offensive line, everything else can just fall into place. You can, we saw last night, you can run a lot of different looks because you trust your offensive line to make the blocks, to make the reads. You can run the ball effectively and chew up clock, like we saw on basically every single drive Utah had last night was just chewing up clock, and then scoring. Never worrying if they weren't going to get a third down, because they were always third and short-ish. And third down happened, and I just knew someone's going to run the ball and they're going to get an easy 4 yards, and the drive's just going to keep going. Like, that is such an important thing to have, is just a good line play, but having elite line play just takes it to a completely different level. And it made me especially extremely happy. I'm a running back. I love my, our offensive line, but a lot of people had the expectations around Dampier, around what are the receivers going to do. But the expectations for Utah's offensive line in the national media is this is a top 3 unit in the country, if not number 1. And I saw a lot of people doubt that. And I think a lot of those people found out real quick that the hype was indeed warranted for this group. It was absolutely incredible to watch.
And it again feels so good after a lot of times hearing that the offensive line is going to be good or improved. And I think there's a lot, it's fair for Utah fans to have some maybe skepticism toward offensive line play because of maybe past performance. And so it was so great to see that group come out and dominate and look like a group that was worthy of that rating. And even being a first game, there's so much more for us to know. Not having to have to talk tonight about where that group can hit their stride, and if they're just getting if they're just getting gelling still, and will to be able to say no, that's what something that they're going to be capable of, is pushing these guys downfield, moving lines of scrimmage dramatically. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, great point. And it did not take them long to to set that tone, right? First quarter, they ended up averaging 5.9 yards a carry. And Josh, this was something that you and I talked about in kind of the lead up, is, at the very least, stay committed to the ground game. Even if you start out slow, stay committed to it, because like we saw in that Iowa State, Kansas State game, the traction eventually got going where you're going from 1 yard, 2 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards. For Utah, out the gate, 5.9 yards, bumping that up to 6.8 in the second quarter. How impressed were you with that performance?
Yeah, I loved it, and you saw it as the game wore on, and that 20 play drive. I mean, just imagine getting mashed in the head over and over again. Just full body mashings by our offensive line to their D line, just over and over, all the way down the field, and it's capped off by a touchdown on 4th and goal too, I believe. So it's like they had a chance to make it all for nothing, and it was capped off with a touchdown. And another thing, while we're talking about where this unit ranks nationally, the PFF guys, I think they had us just behind Bama coming into the season, and then they did their live reaction to week 1. They said that they'd actually put our unit in front of Bama, and I think anybody that caught some of that Alabama FSU game, you're like, that unit doesn't look all that impressive, but ours did.
Yeah, ours definitely.
Did. I love something beautiful. I really love full body mashings. There's something. Yeah, I really like that.
Just felt appropriate. It just was a total punishment. You watch some of those Fano clips, and and only one holding call. 80 plays, as much as we ran the ball, to get one holding call in the whole entire night. I love that, and how fast we were getting off the ball on the snap to have one false start. it was just a really good discipline night. Like, we were so good there.
Yeah, Cam, I'll throw this one to you because you are the vibe expert here, and watching this. Sorry, volume. I should take the volume off. But watching this group and watching this offense, march down the field in the manner that they did, 7 to 9 possessions, they end up scoring 6 of those being touchdowns. What do you felt like that did for the fan base, for the vibe around the program, and just for kind of the belief in this program?
Man, we've been doing this a long time because you hit exactly what I wanted to talk about. Man, like we've been doing this, for a while. No, incredibly high, remarkably high, right? Like everything about it. Like I think so much of what I loved about watching Dampier and Parker and Rogers play as well is like how much fun the three of them were having playing on Saturday night and how much energy they played with. Something that I think can translate really well and can be what am I trying to say? Can be contagious with the rest of the offense and give them that spark of fun and joy that they haven't had for a year or so. And I think you really saw that. I think in those, like Parker and Dampier in particular, it seemed like we're just having a blast. And I think that's something we haven't seen Utah really do in a while, is like have fun out there. And on both sides and far from that group as well. Obviously Barton and Snowden getting so much involvement in the offense and how much fun that looked like they were having. Barton's face after catching that ball. Just the kind of energy that's been missing from this football team for good reason because of the results and what was happening out there. But whether it is the players, whether it's the attitude, whether it's like just the offense and the cadence at which things move, it felt like there was a lot more energy in the offense in general.
Tyson, given your experience, playing the game, like how much do vibes, right, matter, right? Like being positive, having that sort of leadership, just having that throughout the locker. How much does that matter?
Oh, vibes absolutely matter. And honestly, like big, like evidence of that is look at the team last year. Like just a 7-game losing streak. And you could most of the time thought the team didn't think they were going to win, or you could see that it's just like the vibes were bad. And it just compounds. It's like a snowball effect. So when the vibes are good, when you got good guys that are having fun, like everything's just a lot better when you're having fun, right? You play looser, you play faster, and it just, again, a snowball effect the other way. Everything starts to compound. You have more fun. You take more chances. You do certain things, and it just compounds on top of each other. Like vibes is a very underrated aspect of football. Like being in a really good locker room and on the field with really great dudes and that are just having a bunch of fun is an amazing feeling.
Yeah. Josh, you have such a good pulse, on the fan base, and how do you felt like last night sort of changed things for Utah fans?
I think a lot of people came into this season cautiously optimistic, thinking like, hey, there's nowhere to go
even
up, right? Yeah. So a lot of damage there. Even just like going last 2 years. I mean, it's just been an absolute wreck, but people coming in cautiously optimistic, want to see it before they get too ahead of themselves. And I think just to get that right off the bat, that dominant of a performance, there is no gray area there. Like we absolutely came out guns a-blazing, right? So when we're running the space, you could feel all that energy. We'll get into this later. I think the people's biggest complaint is that we were playing our best defensive player on offense too much, and we'll break that down later. But I had to reel everybody in for a second and say, hey, slow down. Let's just enjoy the win tonight. We don't need to pick it apart, and let's enjoy it. And no, it was a really fun night in the space. Last year we did these after 7 games of losing in a row, and it was pretty dark. And ugly, and it's a lot more fun to win than lose. We all know that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, yeah, it was, you could feel the excitement hearing people talk about it, talk about the game. I think, again, like we opened up, people are back on board the bandwagon, and it's exciting. Like I do think there's a lot of excitement for the program moving forward, and just the realization, like, hey, there's something to this squad. It's not just hype. There is a lot of substance here, and to see that game won as emphatically as we did, I think was important to get that sort of buy-in again. And I think it's obviously, I think the important message from Coach Whittingham and the players, even, this was something that they echoed in the aftermath in the press conference, was that this is only one game, and they have that mindset ingrained in them that they have to go out and earn it, and to have the mindset that this is only one game, like we've got a long ways to go, I think is also important to understand it and maintain that sort of perspective as well. So I think that's going to set Utah up really well. It'll be a lot of fun to be at Cal Poly next week and see this group at Rice-Eccles Stadium. But let's continue picking this game apart, because that's what we do. Cam, you want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah, I'd love to. And you gave it a little bit of an introduction earlier, but I think going into the first game of the season, there's obviously a ton of unknowns, and there's so much anxiety about just what is our own team going to look like? How is Utah going to perform? What things that they can control will they control, and all of those things? I think we saw them do a lot of that. And I think there's obviously so much to pick, like so little to pick through in a 43-10 game. But also raises so many more questions about, like, great, so then what is UCLA? Like, is this another Oklahoma State situation last season where that game looks a lot worse in the context of the 7 games that followed? Or is this something else? And so I wanted to ask a couple of questions that basically come down to, was Utah good or was UCLA bad? And the first one is, we saw the front 7 dominate all night. We mentioned that, this group is really good. And this is going to probably spoil this one a little bit, but, excuse me. Yeah, we can start there. Sorry, I had it wrong in the notes here. But we saw how well they dominated all night. But was Utah's offensive line good, or was UCLA's front 7 bad?
Josh, go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say that I saw the stat out there. 60% of our non-blitz snaps resulted in pressure, which was the highest of any FBS defense in week 1. I think that kind of just tells you everything. When we're bringing a 4 or 5-man rush, like if we're getting home that often, we're going to be able to not, if we're not sending all those resources, we're not going to expose our secondary. And I think that's the big thing, is to not limit the big play, right? To limit the big play. Sorry.
I think in this case, like, yeah, you're exactly right. And you're getting a little bit ahead of us. I accidentally jumped out of order here. But you're exactly right for our next question. I was more referring to the offensive line. Like, we talked a lot about the offensive line already, so I don't know if there's a ton more to say, but was the offensive line just good, or was UCLA just bad?
I think there's a mix. They're replacing quite a bit up front. And on the interior, they have something returning there, and I'm not Gary Smith, maybe.
Yeah, Gary Smith, Keanu Williams.
Yeah,
couple of the big bodies up there.
Yeah, but they sent some guys to the NFL, so they're replacing some stuff. But I mean, they were pretty stout up front last season. And you start to find out, is that coaching or is that talent? You start to figure that out. But I mean, how much push we were getting up front, I think, against dudes that big, like it's just still indisputable. Like I think we're that good.
It is really interesting too, that I'll just say, like, Utah didn't really break a ton of plays loose, other than like maybe the occasional misdirection play, like Hunter Andrews, like end around, right, where he picked up 25 yards. But there wasn't a lot of opportunities or there wasn't a lot of instances where Utah kind of broke through the second layer of the defense on runs in the middle. And I think that's a huge testament, obviously, to the offensive line, right? Actually moving that first point of contact so far down the field. But that UCLA is still there making tackles behind that group. The group behind them is capable of stopping these running backs, is capable of wrapping up and bringing guys down, not letting you, take it to the house, but not capable of stopping, these long sustained drives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and sorry, with UCLA, I think it's important to note, like, defensively last year, we think of UCLA as this kind of soft team, right? Because of what happened, between 2016 and 2019, right? Those games where Utah just dominated. Utah had their way, but this UCLA team last year, they were number 6 in rushing yards allowed per game in the entire country. They allowed, I think it was about 90 yards per game last year on the ground, which is significant. And again, that speaks to scheme. It speaks to defensive point of emphasis, and it speaks to the bodies that they have. They're replacing a lot this year, but I think there's a structure, there's a scheme that points to them, that being a strength for them. And so to me, I look at this as the offensive line being that good, consistently getting that push to create the 3, 4, 5 yard gains that they did. I think I wrote about this, but there were 6 chunk plays on the ground last night for Utah that generated 92 yards. That means there were 194 yards on 48 carries the rest of the game. That's a lot of body blows. And that's a credit to the offensive line and what they were doing last night.
Yeah, and I really agree. I really think that is, it's hard to decipher if you were to break down like what yards are responsible from what group and stuff like that, right? Like we try to do that with passing and rushing with quarterback yards and things. And yeah, in the sense of what share of that does the offensive line get? I think this is a really great example of like, what is happening with the yards, how are these drives being sustained? And like so much of it watching the game was, well, Utah players are getting 4 to 6 yards pretty easily, but not after that.
I think a lot of it too, like one play specifically I thought was Wayshawn's touchdown, that first one, when his point of attack was I believe was B gap, but when they brought 2 linebackers into the A and B gap, and like the offensive line being able to not even, they don't even need to get pushed there, but just wall that off enough. There's no one behind there, and there was nobody out on the outside, and all Wayshawn had to do was take just a nice little jump cut to the side, and then waltz is untouched into the end zone. That's big. If the offensive line can they send guys into every gap, just hold them there, just wall it off, and then let the running backs just do what they do. Like, I thought that was a really good example of Utah's offensive line, just the way that they played, like encapsulated in that play.
And a number that I love talking about the offensive line is line yards. It's how many yards they generate before contact. 3.6 yards for Utah last night, which would be among the best in the conference last year. I think Arizona State was 3.5, so 3.6. You're giving your guys 3.5 yards of runway before contact. Man, that's huge.
That's nuts. Absolutely nuts. And I think that'll segue a little bit into the next, like the reverse of that, right? Like Utah's defensive line and front seven were causing, in most cases, the opposite of that last night. Not necessarily turning it into a ton of sacks because Nico's got some mobility and escaped quite a bit there, but also just not really like. There was a lot of cases of guys running past guys a little bit and stuff, but clearly in the backfield all night long. And so I think we got, Josh, your preview of this on your take. So I'm going to let Tyson start on this one. But was Utah good or was UCLA bad?
I think I'll go with the proverbial, the truth is somewhere in the middle. I'm going to lean more towards Utah being, obviously, if it's a dial, I'm dialing it more to Utah being good than UCLA being bad. We know how good Logan Fano is. we've seen Aliki Vamahi for, was this year 5 for him? But we haven't seen a lot of Cash Dillon, Carson Kafusi, John Henry Daly. So to see the way that they produced, especially John Henry Daly, that spin move was gorgeous.
Yeah.
That was incredible. But I'm gonna dial it more towards Utah being good than UCLA being bad, and it's Utah. Utah front 7 being good is like saying the sky's blue. Like it's just expected at this point. So, but I was very, very impressed with how they played, and stopping the run, getting to the quarterback, like Josh said, 60% non-blitz snaps ended up in pressures. That's crazy to do that with just 4 rushers.
And to follow up on that, it wasn't just 60% with non-blitz. It was 60% overall as well. So like that's a remarkable amount of pressure, right? Utah last season was about a 30% pressure rate, which is that's a really good number. 59.6% last night of Nico Iamaleava's dropbacks. He was dealing with pressure. That's significant. When you can impact a quarterback that much at that rate, that's huge. Now, I think I'm going to say that this was more about the UCLA offensive line being bad than Utah's defensive line being that great. Now, I think there's a lot of reason and encouraging signs to be optimistic about this defensive line, but there's still some unknowns with this group as well. So I'm gonna be just a little cautious with this group. I think there's some really encouraging signs. John Henry Daly, like you mentioned, Tyson, surprised and looked great. Logan Fano looked fantastic rushing off that left side. And I think there are still some question marks about the interior group, but I think last night they took advantage of a UCLA offensive line that is just kind of really bad patchwork. They had a right guard that played special teams last season. They had another guy coming up from a lower level that was replaced by. So just it's the UCLA O line is not that good. They're going to have to make strides for Nico this season.
And I think that's partially why I wanted the question to be the front 7 is I think this group, it was especially clear, like from the broadcast. There was actually a beautiful moment on the broadcast where they were talking about Demooney and being on his pitch count because of his injury rehab, and then immediately having his like that really noteworthy tackle on.
I think that was the very next play.
It was immediately. It was the immediate next play, just immediately blowing up, making a huge perfect form tackle in the hole. Looked incredible on the broadcast, and just like I said. But what I was saying is it really looked like the linebackers had a great game, and it made me wonder is again if we look at this question maybe a little narrower, was the linebacker group great? Was the defensive line group great? Was it some combination of the two? Like I said, I think the linebacker group played fantastic and couldn't ask for much more from that group. There some great push and pressures in the passing game, but it felt a little bit less like you mentioned, the interior line was blowing up run plays or really controlling those A gaps like we might be used to.
John,
you did. Oh yeah, sorry, Josh.
I was just gonna say, Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think those are all good points, and that was something coming into this game that we were drooling over was their offensive line just haven't found that gel, not exactly sure what that makeup's going to be along their offensive front in week 1. So while I'm bullish on it, still want to see more of that as we continue onward.
So again, their offensive line was a big opportunity for Utah going into the game. That segues kind of to the next group. So was Nico Iamaleava? Iamaleava? Iamaleava. Was Nico bad, or was Utah's defense just good? Or was he, to complicate it a bit, just a victim of his offensive line struggles against Utah?
I thought he did the best he could back there with how often he had somebody in his face. He had to get rid of the ball quick, and he didn't do a bad job of getting rid of it quick. But it's also hard to be super accurate when you're about to get absolutely mowed down. I thought more than anything, he was just good with his legs. You look at their touchdown drive. There was some poor tackling on our part, but he did create that on his own and get down the field. So I don't know. I wasn't wildly impressed with him. I'm definitely happy that we have our guy and they have theirs. But yeah, I mean, the guy's talented, and to keep him bottled up and keep that offense to 10 points, they definitely were hoping to score, at least 20 or so. Right. So.
Yeah. Rewatching this game throughout the day, I was really impressed with Utah's defense overall against Nico. Now, obviously, I think Nico's offensive line, he's probably a victim there. I don't want to say that Nico was bad. I think he made the best of what he could. But I think Utah's defense, the defensive front getting pressure on him, but then, too, the defensive secondary, they played tough coverage. They were physical with UCLA's receivers, had a couple big hits. I think we saw something last night that Morgan Scalley sort of hinted at, but didn't really make a big deal about. But I remember this vividly now that we've seen this group now. And he talked, I think it was the final week of camp, talked about the versatility in this secondary where you have a guy like Teo Johnson who can go from free safety to strong safety. He also has experience at nickel. You have Jackson Benny, who's a jumbo nickel, can play strong safety. You can move him outside if you need. You've got Elijah Scooby Davis, Blake Cotton, two taller, longer, athletic outside corners. You just have, and that's before even mentioning the wide receiver Smith Snowden in this secondary and his role there. Like, there's just a lot of versatility. So I was really impressed actually with the secondary and how effective they were at mucking up the game, in that passing game. And two, I think, Scally deserves some credit for getting a feel for what this Sunseri offense was going to be, right? Allowing them to kind of give him some looks, give him some different things early on, but then making those adjustments in the second, third, and fourth quarters, I thought was a really good job as well, and really helped this defense. Now they've got to tackle better; they got to clean up the missed tackles. But I think that was I'm going to side more a credit to the Utah defense being good when we're talking about it against Nico Iamaleava.
Yeah, just to reiterate that, that performance was with Utah missing who's likely a starting safety in Rabbit Evans, and then Smith Snowden only played 23 snaps on defense. Yeah. One of, if not the best defensive player Utah has, only played 23 snaps on defense, and they still did what they did last night. That's a testament to Scally's defense. It's a testament to the guys on the field. The guys that have stepped up, the Blake Cottons, Nate Ritchie, looking like old school Nate Ritchie there for a little bit. That was really nice to see. So, just to be able to do that while missing, not being at your full go 100% as a defense is impressive.
So, and you mentioned, Steve, the kind of the challenge with having to scheme against a new offensive coordinator with a team, even if a team you might feel like well, but there's just so many unknowns there. Kind of the flip side of that is what was going on with Utah to a certain extent, but with UCLA with Utah's new offensive coordinator situation. Was Beck great last night, or was Malo, the UCLA defensive coordinator, was he bad?
We're all nodding our head viciously that
Beck was very, very good.
and I think the key here is that it's that relationship between him and Devon Dampier that allowed him to call the offense in the way that he did, with the confidence that he did, with the sort of masterful feel throughout the game. Like, it was rare to see, the same sort of action in consecutive moments in a drive. Even we saw kind of that power look and the powerhouse formation where they did that, as they got into the red zone and that. But there was a lot of new looks, creative looks, and it gets me excited about what's to come for this offense as we progress throughout the season, with the layers that Beck will be able to add to some of these play designs. I think is really exciting. So I'm going to give Beck a lot of credit here for calling a masterful game, and I'm going to throw Devon Dampier in that relationship there, having that experience, knowing strengths, weaknesses of his, and that being what allowed Beck to be as masterful as he was last night.
It reminded me of a healthy Cam and Andy Ludwig. It was a guy with a really good offense and a quarterback who knows how to run it. Like, It was just beautiful to watch again.
Yeah, you could feel the chemistry, and honestly, like, Malo didn't have time to tie his shoes after every play. Like, with us running, like, it's just, you don't know what to expect out of Beck. Like, okay, you can look at New Mexico film, you know that the quarterback OC combo is the same, but you're bringing it to Utah. What different kind of wrinkle? You don't know what to expect, and then all of a sudden, oh, you're running tempo on me. Just over and over. It's just, I think Beck was masterful, and we're very lucky to have him.
I want to give I'll give the biggest shout out to Beck for running his offense and running tempo and somehow still doing the 40-minute time of possession with special. Like, that's
awesome.
Hard.
Yeah,
it's hard to do that while running tempo. Like, and just to eat up clock constantly, but still running no huddle. And it felt like they were just moving so quickly. And you look at the clock and you're like, oh, that was a 7-8 minute drive.
Again, going back to that offensive line, it's like that's the formula for like, that's exactly what's formula, right? Is like, and then what everybody loves, these long sustained drives, but no huge plays necessarily. That drive chart looked like an NFL drive chart, like more so than it did a college football drive chart, because there just were so few explosive plays. It was just sustained first downs. What Utah at one point was 8 of 9 on third down, and and again, another thing that I think we've kind of glossed over was phenomenal in the red zone, and not even having to think or worry about what happened in the red zone. There was no momentum change. It just kept moving until they were until they scored, and it was really, like I said, almost felt too good to be true at times, how easily the offense moved down the field.
And one thing we cannot forget to mention, we were 6 for 6 in the red zone.
Yeah, nuts.
Yeah.
Like,
incredible.
Like, we can get in trouble if we talk about the way that makes us feel.
And even if UCLA ends up being not great, right? Like, that's still a Power 4 team on the road, like, and being 6 for 6 in the red zone. Not to
first
mention,
game of the year.
Incredible. Your first game with a new team, just absolutely incredible performance.
Here was something that I picked up on with that 10-minute possession. Keep in mind, they started 1st and 20 on that drive after a penalty.
Oh, that's right. After
1st and 20 felt like, let's just punt the ball now and get our defense back out there last season. And to see that 1st and 20, you pick up, I think it was like 7 yards. Dampier picks up 4 yards that next play, and then it was 3rd and 9.
It was a scramble, wasn't it?
Yeah, 3rd and 9. They hit Smith. They hit Snowden in the flat again, and he just runs by everybody to get to the marker. But 1st and 20, deep in your own territory, is where that possession started, and then you convert that series, and you just march down the field the rest of the way. Like, that had to be the moment where the back broke, and then Utah just continued to body blow, body blow the rest of the way down the field, and that was where the game was won.
So it sounds like, with the exception of UCLA's front seven actually be, or excuse me, UCLA's offensive line actually being bad, it sounds like Utah was just pretty good, which is good.
Yeah, I think so.
I think I sensed that. I think a 33-point win on the road, in week 1 gives that impression.
It wasn't fluky. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't the flukiness, like a UCLA turning it over 5, 6, 7 times. Like it was just Utah doing what they wanted to do all night long.
There kind of felt like a moment when Utah was, I can't remember exactly what it was, but UCLA scored, and it's just like, okay, is this, is this when the wheels come off now? Like, party's over. Let's let them back into us, and it's going to get tight again. But then, those drives, they just kept coming. Those third down conversions just kept coming, and Utah just kept piling points on, and it's just like, holy crap, this is what we talked about. This is what I think going into the Big 12, visions of Tyson, what you alluded to before with the Cam Rising and Andy Ludwig's offense when it was performing well. I think this is what we thought was going to happen last season. Again, one game, right. Not conference, anything like that, but it feels good to, I used the word vindicated earlier. And I think that's why it invokes that kind of feeling, is it's just like, no, this is what we were expecting. This is what we've been used to. This is what we've built towards, and we're finally proud of as an offense for this team. Something we've really struggled with for, I don't know, Witt's entire tenure. But like seeing that happen last night, it's hard not to feel more optimistic about this season after one game.
For sure, I think that's a great point. I'm glad we did that, kind of weighing it out, because I'm sure, a lot of people had those thoughts and questions, about how good is UCLA. And I think UCLA, they're the type of program like they showed last year. They got better as the season wore on. I expect they'll do the same as Sunseri and Iamaleava, develop that chemistry, and they get a better feel for what they do with each other. So we'll see what UCLA does this season, but that's a good, strong win for Utah. And, with that game mentioned to start the show, the